Chicago Bears hire Ben Johnson. Will the Jets steal Aaron Glenn from the Saints? Mike McCarthy next. Ladies and gentlemen, the backdrop after further review, Matt Moscona. Side note, it is absolutely crazy in New Orleans right now. It is a straight up blizzard. Like, this is the craziest weather I think I've ever seen. I know it is. It's nuts down here. I mean, it is for hours and hours, it's just snowfall. And we're not used to this. So, interesting times in New Orleans, but even more interesting times in the National Football League, where Ben Johnson, the seemingly top candidate for basically everybody, goes where we thought he would go. I've been saying for months, don't even worry about it. He's going to Chicago. He wants the Chicago job. He wanted it last year. Lo and behold, he goes to Chicago. Now, the interesting note is that he's hiring Dennis Allen as his DC, and he wants to interview or hire Darren Rizzi as a special teams coordinator. So, we were never getting Ben Johnson. The Saints were never in the Ben Johnson sweepstakes. But the fact that Allen could go there, or is going there, to be the DC, and then Rizzi could go there as the special teams coach, those are... The Rizzi one especially is bad news bears, no pun intended, for the Saints. And then seems like Aaron Glenn is out on the Saints. Now, I think that's a little weird because the Jets are in so much turmoil. I find it hard to believe that he's just yeah, you know what? I'm all in on the Jets. So we'll see. But, news is happening every 20 minutes now. So let's go ahead and listen to the video and react.
So with another round of the NFL playoffs coming to a close, we have even more clarity now on this coaching carousel and hiring cycle. The Lions losing to the Commanders certainly freed up both Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson, the two coordinators there, to accept the job should it be offered. And we're starting to see some movement there already. For what it is worth, on Monday, when Dan Campbell held his end-of-season press conference there with the Lions, he was asked about his two coordinators and what he thinks the future is for them there.
I would expect to lose both, but I haven't been told anything. I've got a feeling, but I'm prepared to lose both.
Okay. So Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator, Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator, and you heard Campbell say it. And so far, it seems prophetic, not that it would be any surprise, but earlier on the day, Monday, this news broke from Schefter and others that Ben Johnson has been hired to be the new head coach of the Chicago Bears. So Caleb Williams, the first overall pick of the draft, has his new head coach, coordinator, Ben Johnson, apparently headed to Chicago. The news goes a little deeper there as well because it's also being widely reported that Ben Johnson attempting to assemble an all-star staff.
Yeah, I mean, pretty stellar stuff here from Ben Johnson as far as what you have to do and how you have to insulate yourself. We talked about before where coaching now is so delegated where you have your head coach, sure, but you've got to have a stud DC. You've got to have a stud special teams coach. So, and we see that in college too, where Chip Kelly's an offensive coordinator. That's insane. So Ben Johnson is taking that to heart, and Dennis Allen, arguably the worst head coach in NFL history, but a damn good DC, and he knows what he's doing on the defensive side of the ball. Chicago already has some pieces to play with, so I expect Chicago to be pretty good. I mean, I expect the defense to be pretty gnarly. I expect Allen to be in the same conversations as some of the top DCs this year. But just like with Spags, it's interesting because once you fail enough as a head coach, people just kind of quit mentioning you. No one's mentioning Spags for a head coaching job because he's failed. Now he's just a DC. It's you have to fail a few times before you're just a coordinator. I think Allen's reached that point to where it would not surprise me at all if Dennis Allen went to Chicago and the defense was fantastic and he just found his little spot and he was a really good coordinator for a really long period of time. And some people, bottom line, are just meant to be coordinators. And unfortunately, it took a few years of the Saints for Allen to figure that out. But, yeah, I mean, Ben Johnson's, if he gets Rizzi, man, that's a serious staff right there. I think we'll see. We'll see what Ben Johnson can make this happen. But when you get a staff like that, that's when all of a sudden you're just asked to do what you're good at. Ben Johnson is going to be asked to make the offense better. That's what he's good at. He's not going to have to worry about the defense. If he gets Rizzi, he probably won't have to worry about much of the operational stuff because Rizzi seems to be pretty good at that. So he can lean on Rizzi, lean on Allen. I mean, you got multiple coaches there that have a ton of experience, both as a coordinator and as a head coach. Like, it's that's good stuff if you're a Chicago Bears fan.
And one of the chief names being mentioned for his defensive coordinator job is former Saints head coach Dennis Allen. That, of course, according to Schefter. Remember, the Saints do play the Bears in 2025, so there is a shot that the Saints could be playing against their former head coach in Dennis Allen, so we'll keep an eye there. The other news and noteworthy tidbit is around Aaron Glenn. So Aaron Glenn, the Lions defensive coordinator who conducted virtual interviews last week, as did a slew of other candidates. Now that the season is over for the Detroit Lions, Aaron Glenn can begin conducting in-person interviews. And Jordan Schultz was the first to report that Glenn is scheduled for an in-person meeting with the Jets on Tuesday. If the Jets...
Yeah, so word on the street is that, and this isn't from Jordan Schultz, what I'm saying isn't from Jordan Schultz, but word on the street is that once Glenn is in that in-person meeting with the Jets, which is today, I'm filming this Tuesday, the goal is to not let him leave the building without a contract. Like that the Jets are making it known that when Glenn goes there for that interview, they are hoping and expecting that will be it. That will be, he's signing, he's accepting, he's agreeing. So there won't be any other interviews. There won't be interviews with Jacksonville and Vegas and Saints or whatever. So we'll see. I mean, like I said, this news is moving hot and heavy, but that's the reports that the Jets are going to go all in, full court press during their interview with Glenn.
And Glenn don't reach a deal, then Glenn will come to New Orleans for an in-person meeting with the Saints. Now, as Schultz notes, Glenn also has interest from Jacksonville and Las Vegas, although no meetings there have been set. It would stand to reason, it was reported a week ago, that Glenn has the Jets at the top of his list. That was a report a week ago, according to people close to Aaron Glenn, that the Jets would be his primary choice. And if that doesn't happen, if he can't reach a deal with the Jets, then the Saints would be his second choice. So it may be that New Orleans favors Glenn, that New Orleans frontrunner may be Aaron Glenn. But if Glenn takes the Jets job on Tuesday, the Saints never have an opportunity to offer him the job.
Yeah, that's what I was just saying. And I mean, like if Glenn, it's kind of one of those catch-22 things where if Glenn does not accept the Jets job on Tuesday, then he's probably not going to accept it. Because, like I said, the Jets are going to go all in. The Jets are going to go full court press. So if Aaron Glenn sees all that and says, yeah, I'm going to go see what else is out there, then that's a pretty tough look for the Jets, you know. So you can kind of play Sudoku and fill the boxes out by what happens with that interview. Whereas if he takes the interview with the Saints or Vegas or Jacksonville, more than likely he's not going to the Jets. I would highly doubt that. So, and then obviously if he takes the Jets job, then all of a sudden these other teams are scrambling.
So we'll see how that may all transpire. And remember, as bad of an organization as the Jets have been, that is still a better situation than New Orleans.
Yes. Oh yeah. I mean, especially defensively. Like, what does Aaron Glenn like to do? Aaron Glenn, and I know schematics aren't the whole thing, but what does Aaron Glenn like to do? He likes to blitz, play cover one, man on the outside. That's pretty awesome when you have Sauce Gardner, like when you have Sauce, right? When you have Sauce Gardner out there on an island, like pretty chill. That fits your system pretty well. You also have Quinnen Williams. Like there are pieces there. If you're Aaron Glenn and you're just focusing on the defense, certainly fits what he wants to do.
You've got a better roster. You've got more cap space. I believe they have $17 million in cap space with the Jets, where the Saints are $50 million over the cap right now.
I always want to make a Sauce Gardner Johnson pun, but it's never there. And it's always around the tip of my tongue, but it's never there.
You've got a better draft pick. See what happens there with Aaron Rodgers. But there's a lot of appeal to the Jets over New Orleans. And if Aaron Glenn wants to go back to a place where he played as well in his career in New York, looks like he may have that opportunity. So after Ben Johnson has now taken the job with Chicago, we're waiting to see what dominoes may fall with Aaron Glenn. The next sort of question would be Mike McCarthy. And our Ross Jackson from LouisianaSports.net and others are reporting that the Saints will conduct an...
Yeah, apparently McCarthy is supposed to have an in-person interview in New Orleans this week. Now, like I said, New Orleans is in a blizzard right now. Like, call it divine intervention, call it whatever you want, but I don't know if McCarthy will make it. Like, it is, you can't even drive, nothing's open. It is crazy scenes in New Orleans. So I doubt McCarthy's flying in, flying out. So that may put a damper on those plans.
In-person interview with Mike McCarthy this week. So as you kind of tick the box, so a lot of this is starting to come into focus.
Mm-hmm.
So Ben Johnson's in Chicago. Glenn is interviewing with the Jets.
I think there's 3 realistic, I'll say 4 actually. I think there's 4 realistic candidates for the Saints. Mike McCarthy, Darren Rizzi, Kellen Moore, and Joe Brady. I think those are your 4 legit, realistic, these could happen. Saints are probably high on the list. It's like a perfect storm situation where the candidate, because of other situations, the candidate is a little bit lower on some people's list. So I think like, for example, Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore probably, like, the Dallas job is obviously Kellen Moore's linked to that. But I think there is some kind of like, we did just let him go. What does that look like if we give him back? Like, Dallas thinks like that, right? So you also have the Dion thing. You also have the Brian Schottenheimer thing. So where Kellen should be a shoe-in Dallas, he's not, right? And that could benefit the Saints. I think McCarthy is probably like the front runner, I would say, right now, just because McCarthy was linked to the Bears job. The Bears job is gone now. He's really kind of only other linked to the Saints job, and the Saints seem to like McCarthy. So, and then you've got Brady, who, again, in any other situation, he's probably the top guy. But because of Kellen Moore, because of Ben Johnson, Brady's kind of fallen a little bit. And some of these other jobs are scooping up coordinators or scooping up new coaches. And Brady might hang on long enough. And you can say what you want about like the LSU, he's got some kind of connection to the state and all that. I don't know how much that actually factors in. But so I think Brady could be a thing. Moore could be a thing. McCarthy could be a thing. And then Rizzi could be a thing because he's in the building. And if all else fails, and you're looking at this like, man, we're not getting anybody, and Rizzi may go be the special teams coordinator in Chicago, then you just say, okay, well, Rizzi, Kubiak, come on back. Now, you got to act quick, because if Kubiak takes a Seattle job or takes a different job, then it's no good to keep Rizzi, because then you have to get an offensive coordinator anyways. You might as well go get Joe Brady or Kellen Moore or whoever else. So it is a little bit of musical chairs, but I think we should, if you're wondering like who like if you're trying to sift through the noise, who should you focus on as like who is the realistic candidates? I think those are your 4. If I was a betting man, I would say the next head coach of the Saints will be one of those 4 guys.
If he doesn't take the Jets job, he'll be in New Orleans, and I presume the Saints would offer him the job. If Glenn does become the coach of the Jets, then it seems like for New Orleans, it's Mike McCarthy or Joe Brady. However, there are 2 coaches who did have in-person interviews in New Orleans Monday, and that was Mike Kafka, the Giants offensive coordinator, and Anthony Weaver, the Miami Dolphins defensive coordinator. So those 2 coaches had their...
Yeah, and I mean, I would assume the interview was just like 20 seconds of the Dolphins defense and 20 seconds of the Giants offense, and then the interview is over. Like, those 2 guys, zero interest in either.
In-person interviews on Monday. We're waiting to see what happens with Glenn and McCarthy. Joe Brady, as well as still coaching, as Buffalo will play in the AFC Championship game this weekend. So that potentially could be the hang-up. If the Bills win and the Saints want to talk to Joe Brady, they'll have to wait. But if Mike McCarthy is the next guy, remember, the reports a week ago was that there were 2 teams that were going to be interested in having Mike McCarthy in.
Yeah, Chicago, New Orleans. I think the Saints are okay to wait. I think the way it's kind of played out now, like you're fine to wait because the dominoes haven't moved. The dominoes haven't moved to where you're in danger of losing any of these guys. Like Brady cannot go somewhere until after the Bills quit playing. So if you want to wait to talk to Brady, fine. McCarthy, there is no other suitors. Like no one is kicking the door down to get Mike McCarthy. So you don't have to worry about that. Okay, Kellen Moore, Philadelphia is still playing. You don't have to worry about that. All right. So and then Rizzi again, like we'll see. I mean, I guess you can have conversations with him since he's in the building. I guess you can kind of play that by ear, but you're not really in the situation where you have to panic. You have to make a signing or a hiring or interview McCarthy in a blizzard. Like you can kind of chill.
In for interviews, Chicago Bears, New Orleans Saints. Well, the Bears have their coach now as they've hired Ben Johnson. So it would stand to reason that if the Saints have Mike McCarthy ahead of Joe Brady, they could make that hire before Joe Brady's season ends in Buffalo.
Having McCarthy ahead of Brady without talking to Brady is absolutely insane.
Or,
I mean, nuts.
If McCarthy doesn't have another offer, the Saints could wait till Brady's done, conduct that interview, and then make their decision.
I mean, it says something that no one is talking to Mike McCarthy. Like, nobody is talking to him. He's been linked everywhere, but no one's actually talked to him. And no one's actually seriously considered hiring him. So, I don't know, and I've talked about this before, like, agents do talk to the media. Agents do put false reports out there to get their clients in the cycle, in the circle. And I would not be surprised at all if Mike McCarthy was part of that, because I'm hearing a whole lot of Mike McCarthy is number one on this list and Mike McCarthy is number one on that list, but then a bunch of teams not talking to Mike McCarthy, including the Saints. If the Saints like Mike McCarthy so much, why have we still not talked to him?
After Brady's season's over and they can conduct that interview. The same is also true for Cliff Kingsbury. As Kingsbury made the decision last week that he would discontinue.
I'll go ahead and tell you this about Kingsbury. Kingsbury is the offensive version of Dennis Allen and Spags. Like, it's just he's younger, so he's always going to be in that, oh, he's a young, innovative guy. He's always going to be in that conversation, but I think he's a offensive coordinator, and that's it. And I think it'd be I don't want to say a mistake, but I think if you brought him in, it'd be very, very similar to what happened in Arizona. So, and he'd be in a much worse situation. So
his coaching interviews until after the Commanders season is done. So we may have, it may be another week. We may have much more clarity for another week. Or we may get an answer as early as Wednesday. If Aaron Glenn interviews Tuesday with the Jets, doesn't get the job, comes to New Orleans, they offer to him, this could be over by Wednesday, if he is, in fact, at the top of the Saints list. But
yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't think Glenn will leave Tuesday. I think he will be the Jets head coach come Tuesday evening. But yeah, if he leaves that interview and takes the interview with New Orleans, then that changes everything, because then all of a sudden it's like, well, he was kind of your guy, your number one guy anyways, and that could be one hell of a situation. But again, I'm trying to be realistic here of who to focus on. I'd be stunned if that happened.
Time will tell as this plays out. But that's where we are as of right now. Another job is filled, so 2 jobs have now been filled, with Mike Vrabel being the new coach in New England, Ben Johnson, the new coach in Chicago. The Saints waiting for their opportunity to talk to Aaron Glenn on Wednesday. Glenn will talk to the Jets on Tuesday, and if he gets out of New York without agreeing to a deal, the Saints presumably would have an opportunity to hire him on Wednesday if they chose to. So
there you go. All right, so a little coaching update. These, like I said, the news is coming in fast and ferocious, so we're going to try and stay on top of it. But thank you very much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. Let me know in the comments below who you are rooting for, who you are hoping the Saints hire. I will see you in the next video. Stay warm out.